Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope wherever you are in the world, you're doing well and taking care of yourself and those around you, which will be my repeated refrain until the pandemic is over. But ironically, today, the pandemic is not on my mind. It is all the other coming signals that the end of days is slowly upon us. Today in New York City, a hurricane passed over us, so you might be able to hear. You can hear machines outside my building picking up the damaged tree branches from the about, I'd say, 30 to 45 minutes of intense bursts of wind and rain we had earlier today. This is also, on a much more serious matter, a giant explosion occurred today in Beirut and Lebanon, which has left thousands injured, and I think the last article I checked, 70 dead. We're leaning more towards the disaster side of things in the state of the world in this introduction. But I do have an exciting episode to share with you today. My guest on the show today is Steve Lips Kudlow, who is the guitarist and vocalist for the seminal and influential heavy metal band Anvil. Some of you might remember the documentary Anvil, the story of Anvil, that came out, I believe, in 2007, which is how I first became aware of the band. But if I have any metalheads who might be tuning in to listen to this for the first time, first of all, thanks for checking the show out. But they know that Anvil have been around since before I was born, and they've gone on to influence all of the metal that I grew up listening to before I knew who Anvil were. And this was an interesting conversation. This is because I am deferential to somebody who has done what was, when I was a kid and started playing guitar, my dream, who has toured and written songs and made records, and then late in life it became their career. And now, given the state of the world, that the ability to do live shows is not an option currently. And we talk a bit about that because Anvil were on the road when the pandemic hit in support of their newest record, Legal at Last. And as a guy who's been around the track several more times than me, not only is it an honor to get to talk to somebody like that, but this is an episode I had things that I was curious about, and we definitely got into that. But it was kind of hard for me. I found myself struggling to get a word in on occasion, but honestly, after reflecting on somewhat, that's fine, because I imagine people listen to this podcast to hear my guests. But if you do like me, I appreciate that as well. But to hear someone talk about his experience in the music industry on both sides as a relative unknown, and then also to be on the other side and have this very successful, glorious second act of their career, I was excited to get to talk to him. And I hope you guys enjoy this. I will let you know that during the interview, a massive thunderstorm started to roll in right as towards the end of the interview. So I did have to end it abruptly for fear of losing my power. But I had a great time, and there's some great stories here from the bastions of rock and roll history that Lips has been around for. So if you enjoyed this and think you have a friend who might enjoy this podcast as well, definitely let them know. You guys and you listening to this are the number one way that this other people just discover my podcast, and I really appreciate anybody who shares the show. So if you enjoyed this, thank you for sharing it. I really appreciate you being here, and let's get into my chat with Steve Lips Kudlow, guitar and vocals for Anvil. Steve Lips Kudlow, thank you so much for doing my show, man. This is really fun. I'm really excited about.
No problem, man.
I will say metal has been kind of underrepresented on my podcast, but while I was getting set up, I don't know if you're writing a lot right now, but I think the next Anvil album, if you're going to do the word Q, you could do like a quiet in quarantine or something like that. But,
yeah, right. We were actually laughing and joking around about it, but next album is our 19th album, and then we went, hey, we'll just call it Anvil 19.
that's always a good one to do. I wanted to ask you how things are faring up in Canada. Have you, like, Canada's kind of reopened, haven't they?
Not, we're in Toronto. We're still in phase 2. You can't eat in restaurants. It's still pretty locked down here, actually.
Oh, gotcha. That's
and now it's mandatory to wear masks anywhere you go inside. Everybody's very, very intensely paranoid. So whatever is going on, it's going on everywhere, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of how things still are in New York. We're technically in phase 4. I don't mind I've adapted to kind of staying and working from home. It's the thing that gets me is the going out and trying to pretend like I'm still doing normal things I would do, but then you just add like temperature checks and like getting handed gloves and stuff. That's the stuff. I was just talking with my fiance about this. That's the stuff I find weird right now. I'd rather just continue to stay in this apartment and talk to nice people like you.
Yeah, well, the outside world is upside down. You can't do anything without worrying about it. We're at the point where really it's quite concerning in a certain sense. I'm got to see how it all turns out, but I think music and concerts are going to be the last thing to come back if they come back at all.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a part of me that's saying, no, this virus is not going to go away. No, I don't see it.
Yeah, not for
all the closing down and everything that we've done. All we've done is prolonging what will inevitably happen. That's what I kind of think.
Yeah,
I don't think that in the long run, no one is going to get saved that they thought they were going to save. I think anybody vulnerable to this is going to eventually get it and die. I don't think that we're going to ever really get it under control until everybody has had it and it's done. It's like the other pandemics that the world has had. I think it's got to play itself out. I don't know if there's going to be anything that we're going to be able to do as a human race to fix it. I don't think so. And even if we do, there'll only be another one that they'll come up with another reason to close down. I don't see the world ever really going back the way it was in a certain sense. I just have I don't know. It's not a good feeling. Then again, because I'm 64, it's not like I've got a long time to put up with it. That's for sure.
Right. That's the kind of gallows humor of the whole situation. So I
mean, it's going to be everybody else's world that I leave behind. If I'm lucky, I've got 20 years left. Maybe I might make it to 84, but who knows, right? But I don't know. It certainly looks like I didn't retire from the music business. The music business retired from me.
Yeah, exactly. Were you guys because I know the new record came out in February. Were you guys on the road when the shutdown or the call?
Absolutely. We were in the UK. We had done 20 shows, and we had to get out of England. And if we didn't get out, we got out of England on March 18th, luckily. Mm-hmm. And we got the last 3 seats on British Airways back to Toronto.
Oh, wow.
And everything, we had bought flights originally on British Airways, but there was a stopover in New York.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we got to the airport, nobody was allowed into America without an American passport. And even though it was only a stopover for a half an hour or 45 minutes, they wouldn't let us take the flight.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So there was a big panic and a lot of shit going on, and we were lucky, and they found 3 seats on a British Airways flight back to Toronto later that evening. So we were really lucky we got out of England just in time, because after that point, after the 18th, you couldn't leave. All the flights were canceled. Couldn't get home.
Oh wow. Yeah, that would be a
It
terrible
was like
situation.
really, really
Yeah.
close to the wire. And I somehow picked up a virus, and I don't know whether I had COVID or not, but I'd never been
Mhm.
that sick in my life. I came home 4 days later. I was completely laid up for 3 weeks in bed, sick as a dog, and I finally got over it. But nothing entered my lungs, luckily. But I was passing out. I was in rough shape, man. And that's all I can tell you.
Oh goodness. Yeah, that's the other crazy thing too, is like you don't know if you're just getting like regular sick or if you're getting COVID sick. It's like the uncertainty.
Yeah, and you know, like there was one point where I I lost consciousness, and my wife called 911, and the hospital just asked, "Is he breathing?" And she said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, that's good, because we're not coming to get you."
Wow,
Yeah, that's how that went.
that's crazy. I hope those
That is
20
crazy.
shows were good though.
You couldn't go get tested. If you were showing signs, you weren't allowed to go there. Like I just don't understand. It's just crazy, just craziness. Um, what does it all mean? What is it going to all mean? What are the what lies are there out there?
Mhm.
How much of what we're being told is accurate, and what is accurate in what we're being told? Who knows, man? We don't know.
Yeah. Were those 20 shows
You know,
good
like
though?
we're asking everybody, do you know anybody that's had this? And everybody that we ask says no. So how's that? How come that is?
Yeah, I've known 3 people that have had it and have recovered, thankfully. But yeah,
And
the
they
amount of like,
tested it, and they did absolutely have it for sure.
yeah, absolutely had it for sure. Had the test, tested positive.
Okay,
All
well
nine yards.
then I mean there's definitely truth to it, but a lot of people can't see that truth or don't know that truth for sure. So there's a lot of doubters out there, which is very bad, because
Mhm.
those are the people that are going to go, why am I wearing a mask if I never knew anybody that was sick?
Yeah, exactly. And then
You know,
because there's
people are
so
hard
much
to
new
convince unless
information.
you
Yeah.
can see proof or hear proof or witness proof, and that all these things make it difficult, and that's going to prolong this. That's why I said I don't know what's going to be. Like, how long is a company like Live Nation's going to stay in business if they can't put shows on?
Yeah.
Eventually that's going to go away, and now you won't see a rock concert again.
I was talking about this with the bass player of another band I grew up listening to, and we kind of we thought best case scenario. I don't know if you saw any of these videos, but I feel like maybe like 15 years ago there was a trend of a lot of new metal bands were all playing in fields. Like that was the edgy thing to do. So we thought best case scenario, eventually shows will just take place in fields before we ever get back to like walls and a roof again.
Yeah, but even still, you put people in the field, how far do you have to stand apart? Who's going to police that? Who's
Yeah,
going to put on a
exactly.
show in the middle of I mean, let's face it, festivals aren't have never done very well in North America, and they're not going to. It's
Hmm.
just not going to happen. They're not going to let people, multitudes of people go to one place. It's just not going to happen. So,
Yeah.
we're going to see hockey, football, basketball. Those things are going to become, um, those things will come back long before they're going to have a rock concert. That's what I think. Because I think
Yeah.
people view sports as being more important than music. God only knows why, but that's how I see it. I think that the sports industry makes more money than the music industry.
Yeah, I can see that. Do you think Anvil will continue? Would you want to continue to like release records even if you couldn't tour or play live?
Well, that's a good question because the one thing is attached to the other, and to me, why am I recording records if I can't go out?
Right.
What's the point? You can't go play it live. What was the point recording it?
Yeah.
To me, it's kind of defeats the purpose. I don't know.
Yeah. That kind of makes sense to me, especially for what
Well,
I
how are
know
you going to make
of
money?
you.
How are you going to make money?
Yeah, exactly. The more practical aspects. I did want to
Like, how do you sell your CDs if you can't play live? How are you going to, if you can't advertise your music, how are you going to get anyone to buy it? Like, you take the playing away, it's done. It's done, man. Like, I don't see, if you take away all live performances, the music industry is finished. Or at least the music business that we've known all our lives is not going to exist. It can't, because as it is, all the money is gone from making music. So the only thing that was left was playing live and selling T-shirts and merchandise. Now you take that away. Now
Yeah,
where is your revenue going to come from?
yeah, because
Selling
you can't really
masks?
replace. Yeah, you can't really replace it with streaming revenue either.
Yeah, like what are you gonna? Okay, streaming. Okay, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying though, in that it's not quite.
Where are you going to get them? What's going to pay for your recordings? What's going to pay for you to make a living? What's how is that going to work if all the revenue streams are gone?
I know. I it's
So I
so
mean, I don't mean to be as dismal, but this this situation is going to have to get better. I mean, like my drummer Rob says, it can only get better, because if it gets worse, it's over. It's not going to. It's done. So
yeah,
it
exactly.
really has only one direction, and it's got to reopen. Otherwise, it's going to be finished.
Yeah, I agree with you. I did want to say though, I was listening to the most recent record, and it's great, Steve. Like I feel like, and particularly what I've been listening to a lot of lately is I've been like getting into like home recording and stuff like that. I feel like your guitar tone over the last like several records is like the perfected version of your guitar sound. At least from my perspective. I'm curious, for the most recent record, what did you play and record through?
Well, what I've been using all along. It really depends on who you have sitting in the control room and how they're recording you. It's not really so much the equipment that I use. I've been using Fender Twins since 1977.
Hmm.
So nothing's changed, man.
Yeah, that's what I like about your
So
sound is
it's
that,
like, I don't know, how are they recording it? What kind of equipment is being used? What kind of microphones? What kind of compression? What kind of board is it being plugged into? Who's the engineer? You know,
Mhm.
it all comes down to those things. The guy I've been working with for the last two albums, Jorg Yukin,
Mhm.
we call him Doctor. He's the doctor. I mean, the guy knows guitar tones. He knows how to dial it in. He
Yeah.
knows how to mic it and what needs to be done, so that when you hear it at the end, it's blistering amazing.
Mhm.
That's a great thing. That's a great thing. I think I got lucky. I'm with the right guy, and it's being looked after properly. But generally speaking, like I said, I've been doing the same thing for 40 years. It's just a question about who's been recording me and how they recorded.
Gotcha. Well, I think he really has captured, I think, on the last couple of records, that sort of like that more like bluesy mid-range kind of like creamier distortion compared to like that. I like Marshalls, but I always find them a little bit like more biting. But I think the tones that he's gotten on the last couple of records are spectacular. I was also always curious, and I imagine you've had that red V guitar for the entire time as well. Who makes that guitar?
Oh well, the red guitar is actually I think I've had it for about 6 years. I've had semi-hollow V's for 40 years, close to that. Um, the first couple that I had made were made by a guy here in Toronto, and they basically wore out.
Hmm.
Some guy by the name of Bob Wojcik. Um, and then eventually, like up until the movie, I was using them even then. Eventually, the bass player from Raven, John Gallagher, is a good friend of mine, and
Hmm.
he met this guy named Tony. I got to think of his last name. Well, in any case, he had a company called October Guitars,
Hmm.
and that guy asked me if I want custom made semi hollow V's, and I said absolutely. So he built me. I've got four of them. I think there's 10
Hmm.
in all told. Some people I know that John Z from Megaforce Records has one. Maybe he'll sell it to me before, and then I'll have five. Um, yeah, and the company doesn't exist anymore, so you're not going to be able to find one.
Nice. So they're collectors. I didn't realize they were semi hollow V's. That's
Yeah,
pretty.
they're what? Yeah, I guess you could call them thin lines. They're semi-hollow.
Hmm.
The whole thing was, I was using an ES335 in my early years.
Hmm.
And then I thought, well, then I got an ES150, which is a big fat 335. And then at that point, I decided, you know what? I can't play one of these big Gibsons because it looks like I'm reinventing Ted Nugent or something. I need to be my own thing. So a guitar builder asked me if there's something that he could make me that I have any ideas what I would get made. And I said, I want to get a Flying V that's semi-hollow and sounds like an ES335. He said, no problem. And that's when I started getting that done. So yeah, the tonal quality is like a semi. It's like a 335 or a Birdland or a Barney Kessel or a Dave Grohl or you
Uh-huh.
know all the many different the L5. A lot of different Gibson guitars are semi hollows, and they
Yeah.
have that very very special tone. You
Hmm.
can acquire harmonic feedback from any note on the neck. They're extremely responsive in a live circumstance, so that you can get endless sustain. Uh, just something I preferred and something that I've always wanted. So that's what I did. I hate following and copying people. I like to be unique and unto myself,
Hmm.
and everybody should be compared to me rather than me being compared to everybody else.
Right.
That includes my voice. That includes my stage persona. That includes using a vibrator on a guitar. It's my part of my personality. It's what I am.
Oh, absolutely, man. Well, it is not lost on guitar nerds like me. I think that because that's all like very uh, atypical for heavy metal, and especially like the metal today. The other thing I've always kind of enjoyed about metal, and I think you said this, and Anvil specifically, I think you said this in another interview, like like heavier does not necessarily mean play faster. Like very
No,
slow. Like like Anvil have slow songs that are heavy as hell.
well, we actually have every type of song. When we put out the album Metal on Metal and Forge and Fire, they were like fucking examples,
Mm-hmm.
prime examples of what it means to be a metal band. And all that bands did, well, they took one song off of Forge and Fire and make their whole sound in and around it. So what does that create? Okay, so Slayer listened to 666 and they created a whole band out of that.
Uh-huh.
Metal,
Yeah.
metal. Metallica heard March of the Crabs, and then they started doing all that chunka lucka stuff all over the place, and that became Metallica. And then bands like Dokken or whatever heard the song "Stop Me," and they all started doing commercial rock. So there's every facet, every feel. To me, heavy metal is a very, very, very broad statement. And if indeed Anvil is heavy metal, then we better represent that broad statement. So that means that you can't make 10 songs that all sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
Every song has to represent some other different aspect of metal, not just another song that sounds like the last song.
Yeah.
So a song like "Legal at Last" sounds absolutely nothing like "Nabbed in Nebraska," and
Mm-hmm.
"Nabbed in Nebraska" doesn't sound anything like "Gasoline." And on and on and on it goes. The whole new album, every song is vastly different from the last. There's no two songs that are the same sounding on that record. And in fact, and even goes as far as playing in different keys.
Mm-hmm.
Many bands, if not all bands, play in one key throughout a whole record. All their songs are in E, or all their songs are in D, or they tune down and all their songs are in C. Whatever. It's not a way to give variety. It's a way to bore your fans. I'll tell you that, and short-live your band. If you have no variety in what you're doing, you're limiting it. You're going to be limited. You can only go so far.
Yeah, I would agree.
Redundant. You're not really moving anywhere.
Totally. And
Look at
you guys have been kind of doing this your whole career.
And as diverse and as different as we make all of our tunes, people still have enough of the audacity to say all of our music sounds the same, and we haven't changed at all. It's like, gotta wonder, man, if people are listening to these records or they're just talking off the top of their head. People like to make up their own facts or alternative facts. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a bizarre world we're living in these days, man. It's just like, wow. The opinions out there, they're not based on any kind of science or any kind of facts or any kind of knowledge. It's that people just shooting their mouth off. It drives me crazy. That stuff drives me nuts, man.
Yeah, I agree.
People hear something on Facebook and they parrot it and go on and believe that it's true. Like, how can people think, just for even on a simple thing, how can people think for a second wearing masks, the pharmaceutical masks, is bad for you? How the fuck do you get the idea that that's bad for you?
Mm-hmm.
And that it's not going to help when they've been using masks in fucking hospitals for 50 years?
Yeah.
Why do you think that they exist to begin with? It's to stop transmission of germs. So what if people got a problem with, don't you think it's easier to put on a fucking mask than to close down the world?
I know.
I don't get it. Sorry, man. I just don't get it. I'm losing my rights by having to wear a mask to protect my fellow human beings from maybe I've got the bug and I'm going to give it to them and I'm going to walk around resenting that. I don't know, man. That's just what's going on today. It's what's out there today. But I mean, a lot of the silliness overflows into every aspect of humanity, and I constantly question it, constantly, you know. And a lot of the subject matter, and people don't understand, you know, talk about marijuana and the misunderstanding and the misconstrued and the misinterpreted and all the stuff involved with the use of marijuana and why it became illegal. People don't even know why it was made illegal. It has nothing to do with its pharmaceutical aspect. It was specifically about its danger to the cotton industry and pulp and paper.
Mm-hmm.
It threatened those industries, and that's why it became illegal.
Yeah, anytime a major industry looks like they might lose money, they're very quick to demonize whatever.
That's right, and that's what you follow the money and you'll find the reason, and that's where it all is. So, you know, nothing's changed. You know, nothing's changed. I think one of the biggest dilemmas and the biggest question that I have in my mind, I can't believe for the first time in human history they're worried about people's health over money. When did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you ask me, when the fuck did that happen? They more than likely have had a cure for diabetes for the least 20 or 30 years that they don't let out of the bag. So does big government care about our health? No. But they know they're making lots of money from insulin. And you can talk about cancer, the same thing. They probably had cures. They'd rather that we get sick and spend money. So that's why I'm finding it such a dilemma. Why did they close down the world? Why did they shut down all the business? Why did they put you know, why is the government's printing money and putting us further and further in debt? Why? What is that about? There's a lot of big questions, man, and what's going on in this world and why, you know, and we're not going to find out. We can discuss it and we can have suspicions, but no one's going to give you the answers.
Yeah, and at a time when you want and need answers the most, it can
It's
be
the most elusive. You're not going to find out.
Yeah. You are not alone in feeling that way, Lips. I feel the same way. If anything, what I have done to try to, like, I guess not numb myself or shut the blinders off. I look every day. I try to find something that brings me a little bit of optimism. And given that, like you, my entire comedy career has, like, been put on indefinite hold.
Yeah, I've been put on hold, but I'm not on hold. I've written the next album. It's almost done.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear.
I'm less than a year. It hasn't even been out a year. The new album. I'm talking about 5 months, and I'm already finished writing for the next album. Well, so I'm not wasting any time, but I might be, because who knows? There might not be a record label by the time we're ready to record again.
Exactly.
And there might not be a music business or anywhere to play. So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. We're going to find out, though. And you got to be prepared. That's it.
Pretty much. I'm curious because we're talking about, like, all of the bands that kind of, like, basically, like, went thrift shopping with different aspects of Anvil style, which I do agree with you. Like, re-listening to Metal on Metal, that is an incredibly diverse sounding record. When Anvil were really started coming into their own on the first couple of albums, what were you listening to that that inspired you and really got your juices going musically? Because when I think of like when I think of like the intensity of metal in the 80s, that wasn't really happening in the 70s as far as I'm aware. So I'm curious, what were you listening to at that time, and then
Well,
how did that translate?
ultimately, it was our interpretation of what happened in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Like by listening to Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, those were my alphabets, but what we were doing was our own application or our own interpretation of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So they became what they were, and that you're doing it out of innocence. You're not doing it because, hey, we're going to make this new thing up and it's going to be the new thing. You weren't even thinking about that. You were just thinking, well, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Let's try that, and you do that, and even when you did it, you're sitting there. Like I can still having the discussion with Chris Angarides, and I'm going, I wish I knew what Anvil's style was. And he looked at me like I was out of my fucking mind. He goes, listen to the album. It's your style. I go, yeah, but it's a lot of different styles.
Mm-hmm.
I hear influence from all over the fucking place. It doesn't sound like, to me, it didn't sound like I couldn't compare it to anything. And he goes, well, the reason you can't compare it to anything is because that everything's going to be compared to yours. You can't, you've created, that's your sound, is what you're listening to. And I just did not, it didn't register like that to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like Heat Sink, I'm going, it just sounds like some kind of fucking rainbow song, right?
Yeah.
And Tag Team sort of sounds like a Scorpion song, and like I could rip it all apart and I'd go, well, 666 is like a cross between Budgie and Motorhead. So I mean, I don't know what's Anvil. Well, Anvil is that. It's a combination of a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it is. You can't say it's one thing specifically. It draws from a lot of different areas. And like I said, Motorhead, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Uriah Heep, Montrose. I mean, I could keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, well, yes, like I hear all of that, and particularly, I guess,
Grand Funk Railroad. I don't know, Hendrix,
mm-hmm.
The Cream, Jeff Beck Group, Captain Beyond,
yeah,
Humble Pie, Foghat, Bad Company. It just keeps going and going and going. It's really anything that happened from the late 60s through the 70s into the early 80s. And those are there's little gems and pieces and aspects that you're going to find in Anvil that's from all those places. So it's as diverse as those places are, so is our music. I'll draw influence or inspiration from listening to a Deep Purple song, and you're not going to know where I got the idea from.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to just sound like another Anvil song to you, but you're not realizing that, well, I got the whole idea from this particular song, from this particular album. You're going to go, okay. I mean, there was one album that we did called Back to Basics, and the whole album, at least what I tried to do, was it's a reassignment of a reassignment of notes to all familiar rock songs from the 60s and 70s. So mm-hmm. What I did is I took songs from the 60s and 70s and reassigned all the notes, all the beats and everything, the way that the song is arranged. is all extremely similar to something that has been done before, but all the notes are all brand new. That's a new song.
Uh-huh. Well, that's an
But
interesting way to approach an album.
yeah, it was done on purpose, and that's why I called the album Back to Basics. I was pulling directly from influences, and very, very far and in between anybody ever got it. No one ever talks about it. So so much for that idea.
Well, I'm gonna go back and re-listen to that, and because I'm very much I view myself as like when I get really into listening to music, like you kind of feel like an archaeologist sometimes. They're like, okay, well, let me trace this. Okay, so this is back to that.
Yeah, but that album is done like that on purpose. And even though it was done like that on purpose, no one notices. I haven't had the discussion with anybody really in all these years, man.
Oh, really?
That album came out, I don't even know. It must be something like 2000 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was 2003 because I recall it being before the movie came out, and
right.
and I do I apologize for my lack of metal cred. I'm one of the many people who first came to be familiar with your music from that documentary, which I'm sure.
Well, I don't know what your knowledge of music and history go back, but I can give you examples of certain songs from certain places. As an example, we have a song on Plenty of Power called "Computer Drone."
Mm-hmm.
Well, that song is totally rewritten version of a Grand Funk song.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Paranoid.
Uh-huh.
You know the song Paranoid?
Yeah.
The Grand Funk Railroad. That's wow, 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 wow. You ever hear that one?
Yeah, I think it's been a while since I listened.
Down, down. You'd know it if you heard it.
See, this is why I need to this is the kind of why I need more conversations like this in my life, because how else am I ever gonna to discover the good stuff unless I can. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that sounds familiar.
You've heard that before, right?
Yeah, I've heard that. I definitely have.
Okay, well, there's a song on the Plenty of Power album called "Computer Drone." Have a listen to that and then think about that Grand Funk song. The other one is "Son's and a Good Man Brother." You ever heard of that Grand Funk?
I don't think I have. No.
Well, that's what I mean. Like I've taken Grand Funk songs and rewritten them into in complete full-on metal songs, and no one knows where they came from. Another example of Back to Basics. We had a song called "Bottom Feeder," and that song is Hendrix. It's rewritten song "Fire."
Oh yeah, I of course know that song.
Yeah, well, look up "Bottom Feeder" and then you'll see what I did there.
Excellent.
They're not the same, but they're the same.
Mm-hmm. I know I'm familiar with this idea. Like when I listen to folk or singer songwriters, I need to hear the chords G, C, D in that order, or else I'm like, what am I even listening to the thing I like?
Yeah, well, I'm just explaining that I've done some really interesting stuff in songwriting, but most of it goes completely unnoticed. And people don't really know that that's what I've done at all.
Right.
Which is, I think, is pretty funny. And sometimes it's so close or so obvious that I've done it that way. And what eventually happens is you can tell if somebody's, especially journalists, if they've listened to the album. If they don't mention that particular thing, you know they haven't listened to the record.
Right. Yeah, which
I
kind
think
of
it was,
goes back to
I got to think of the song. It's off of Hope and Hell, Through With You. I reassigned the notes to Smoke on the Water.
that I did pick up on.
Okay, but and most people would, because it's, although they're really not the same, but you can tell what they're. I must have looked. They must be related, and obviously they are. And like I said, when reviewers would review that album, if they didn't mention that song and that fact, you could tell they didn't listen to the album.
Right.
And you could, it's like obvious. You'd say a whole bunch of stuff, and nothing would be talking about the song Through With You, and you're going, they never listened to the record at all. Because if they did, they would have said, hey, there's a song that reminds me of Smoke on the Water on this record. No, if they don't say that, obviously you didn't listen to the record.
Right. It's like the musical equivalent of the no brown M&Ms on the Van Halen writer. Almost, it's like
yeah. If you don't notice that there's no brown M&Ms, you didn't follow our rider properly, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't take out the M&Ms like we asked, that means everything else is going to be fucked up at the gig, right?
Yeah, that's the explanation I've heard for that, because
that was the truth. That's why they did that. That's exactly why they did that.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about on the subject of songwriting? I'm curious how you go about approaching writing guitar solos. Like, what are the foundations that you work from when you're building and constructing a solo?
Well, that's I like vocals. I usually only work on the whole thing in the studio, in the actual recording studio, because then that way I can listen back and adjust things if I want to, and replay it. And I don't lock myself into, oh, this is how the solo has to be. I rather construct it, and you keep playing over and over on the space that you got to do the solo until you find what you need to do, what needs, you kind of, it writes itself, you know. You jam with the tape until you're happy with what you're coming up with. You learn your path, and every solo section is a path. You just have to learn it and create it, and that's how I go about doing it. I mean, it's if you are truly a songwriter and you have an imagination, that's what your job is. You don't think about it and you don't make much of it. You just do it. And right. those that make a big deal about it are the ones that struggle with it the worst. I mean, I can give you an example, and I don't like to. I can tell you, there's a really, really, very, very, very famous English band with an absolutely incredible guitar player. And he was like a fucking 5-year-old in the studio, playing this, taking, 12 hours to put a solo down when he should have been done in fucking 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah. If you know what you're fucking doing, you shouldn't be taking 12 hours to make a solo. Okay. Not to play for play for a fucking minute and a half in a song. You're going to take 12 hours to play it? What's wrong with you? Yeah. That means that you're not doing something correctly. It means that you're not playing from your heart. It means that you're doing it all with your brain. And therefore, it's all technical. There's going to be no soul to it. So that's what the difference is. And I had those situations with our guitar player Ivan Hurd, and before we actually, the last album, which was This Is 13, that's when I had enough. I had enough. I wasn't going to put up with it anymore. We recorded all the tracks. Everything is virtually done. And this guy, he's going to give me the tracks, and I'll practice and I'll write my solos. So of course the producer had to sit down and do pre-mixes and give them the 3 or 4 songs the guy was going to play solos on.
Mm-hmm.
He had the stuff for a week and a half. We get him, okay, now I'm finished all my solos. I do all my solos for the other 12 songs or the 10 songs on the album, and there's only a couple songs where where Ivan had to play. It took him as long to do 2 songs as it took me to do 10.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And at the end of the day, what he did was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
It's a joke. I could have done better solos in 10 minutes than he did it in fucking 48 hours. They would have had way more soul. And if you ask me where he played lead guitar on This Is 13, you can't even remember the songs. You can't remember a note he played. It's just flip flap. There's no soul. There's no shape or signature to it. It's just fast playing for the sake of fast playing, filling a hole. It's got there's nothing there.
Yeah, just winnily with
There's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you do shit, man. It's not how it gets done. And we're saying before, are you prepared? He goes, I got it all in my head. The guy never sat down and worked with the tracks. The producer goes, okay, let me hear what you've got. He goes, well, I haven't got anything. Go, what do you mean you haven't got anything? I gave you bed tracks 2 weeks ago. You don't have anything? Well, what do you? He's going, well, what do you want me to play? He's going, how about a solo? You know what I mean? Like,
I do. It's crazy to hear that, like, for people who would consider themselves professional musicians.
After that, I had enough. I'm going, this is ridiculous. Each day in the studio was $1,200. It just cost me $2,400 to have 2 solos put down on my songs. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It goes to
plus I've had to pay for this guy's hotel room, all of his food for fucking 6 weeks. What the fuck is this?
Yeah,
and whining and complaining and fucking, this is, I'm not getting enough out of it. It's just, fuck this, man. You don't need that shit. You don't need it.
Yeah.
And no one really give a damn. Most people, they hear a solo, that's nice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's song filler. Lead guitar doesn't mean what it did 20 years ago or 30 years ago, because everything's been done. So now it's about play me something I can remember. No one gives a shit how fast you can play anymore. That doesn't matter anymore. People want to hear a solo that means something. They don't want to hear a solo just because you can play fast. So fucking what? Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't have, it's like I said, it lacks soul, lacks identity, it lacks all the things that are actually ultimately much more important. The things that Hendrix did, it wasn't about speed. It was about listen to that sound. Listen how the soundscape of that solo and all the notation and that you can whistle along with it. that it actually has a shape, form, I mean, those are all the important aspects that with all these great guitar technical wizards that came out of California, they flattened the curve of lead guitar. No one gives a shit. Everybody's fucking, everything's been done, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So here you're paying some guy so that he can fill your music with all this gobbledygook that no one gives a shit about anymore.
Yeah. And it takes away from the song. And I'm also thinking if this was going on, because the documentary, like when it first came out, and I saw it when I was like just in the middle of the beginnings of my comedy career, I like was really relating to your struggles personally and financially to just continue to keep doing what you want to do. I still even today, like it plays differently to me now, knowing what happened afterwards. But thinking about like you're going through all of this during the recording of This Is 13 at a time when you've borrowed money from your sister to be able to make this record after the call center telemarketing scene like still haunts me some days. I can imagine like I imagine like the weight of the world in that moment was probably all on you. And then this guy isn't pulling isn't as
there's
dedicated
a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
Plus the producer during that is taking a sweet ass time. So the bill is getting bigger and bigger, and the work isn't getting done as fast as it should. So it's costing more.
Mm-hmm.
And I've borrowed money from my sister, and I've got, that's all that shit was going on. It's just like ridiculous, absolutely insane.
Yeah. And it's disrespectful. It's just by him. I mean, I don't know him personally, but it's disrespectful to you, and it's disrespectful to like what a place to be in. So I am sorry that you had to deal with that, even if it was along the way to a lot of great things, and particularly and I talk about this.
It was all worth it, though. You see, that's a thing. I knew at the end of it where it was going and how it was going to turn out. Man, I was really the only one that did. So and my actual feelings were the worse stuff that they filmed, the better it's going to be at the end of it.
Oh, totally.
And I was actually right. So I had a major blowout with my drummer, who's my best friend. And when it's being filmed, and I couldn't give a shit that it was being filmed. At that point, it was already beyond worrying about that.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, and having done what it was actually one of the most important things that got filmed.
Oh yeah.
So 100%. my actual ideas, or my thoughts about the worse it gets, the better it is, was definitely on the money. So
yeah.
When we're touring around in Europe and it's a fucking disaster, or that you run out of gas in the middle of the fucking woods, or the worse it got, the better, right?
Yeah, it made for it definitely made for an interesting documentary. The other memorable scene I remember is when you guys got screwed over by that one promoter in Prague, and that one very drunk lawyer was like giving you his card, just like, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you guys.
Yeah, right.
It makes for very it makes for it makes for very compelling viewing, and especially what immediately follows after that when you guys play the festival in Japan. You come back to Japan again, which I have such a romanticization for the Japanese music scene and Japanese bands that I love. To come back to the place where you played that huge festival in the 80s, and then to have the huge great show after all these struggles has got to be has had to have been incredible, man.
Yeah, well, the movie depicts things in such a way that it has the most I guess the strongest emotional response. You have to understand that Anvil's been around for a long, long time, and we do those festivals here and again, and even to this day. And it's not like we're doing them all the time either.
Mm-hmm.
And either do any of the other bands for that matter. We got asked onto that Japanese festival as a matter of we hadn't been there, so they hired us. Got lucky, not because we were making a movie, not because we were going to make a movie, and not because it just happened that way. Much the same way as you saw us at Sweden Rock, you saw us at Bang Your Head, you saw that those are festivals
Mm-hmm.
that we get hired at anyway, and have been all along. So it's no big surprise. I mean, you don't keep a band together for the length of time that you do with for no reason. You know, that's a thing. You know, you can watch that movie, but people seem to think, hey, we're not watching a band that made one album and failed for 30 years. We're watching a band that's been around for years and has put out 12 albums before this movie.
Yeah.
That's not 12 failures. That's 12 albums. That's 12 successes.
Exactly.
And 24 fucking years or longer. So there's got to be a certain level of success, because we're not talking about complete failure, because if it was complete failure, there wouldn't be 12 albums.
I agree with that completely. Just continuing to work.
See, that's the thing, you know, that people, they watch, but they don't get it. They don't get the complete picture. And it's not that I have fault with that, or I have a problem with that. I just observe how the world watches things and perceives things. And it's much the same way as watching Facebook. People repeating and parroting what they see, but they haven't read the articles.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, how many people have seen the Anvil movie but knew very little about Anvil? Most. Right?
Yeah.
So you don't know the history. The other thing is you're going to get a lot of people making statements about our music and they've never listened to it. That really drives me crazy. And it's like I said, you know, you put out an album and you can tell the journalists that actually listen to it because of what they wrote. And a lot of times, like I say, they never even listened to the album and they're reviewing it. And a lot of people listen to music and don't even know the names of the guys in the bands, you know. So that it's no one's fault. It's just human nature to kind of overlook a lot of information, and a lot of information just never gets known or even perceived properly. Like, why do people think that no one comes to Anvil shows when you're watching that movie? You see that there's packed houses. Like, are people that fucking blind just because we show one show that no one's there? All the shows had no one there.
Right.
I remember a show in Greece that they showed that there was no one there, but all my recollections of the shows is that there were lots of people there. Why would we be touring in Europe, and why would they be paying you if no one's coming to see you? Why would you have 100%. A record deal if no one's buying your records?
Yeah.
And if the music sucked? Like, sorry, I mean, they're legitimate questions, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it gets painted in this very kind of like one-dimensional way that it can be reduced down to like a couple of sentences in an article.
Yeah, it's like
a headline.
You didn't see that, you didn't understand that. Like when I say the names of 12 albums in a row, you don't get that? Like, how many people didn't get that? That's not a failing band.
Yeah, that's not a failure at all. 12 albums?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Why do
Yeah, I
people
agree with you.
why do people go in, you failed for 30 years? They're going, failing for 30 years would be not recording a record from your first album and never recording again. That's failing. But not when you
Exactly.
put out 12 albums and you're in recording your 13th album. That's not failing. Sorry.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. It's just I feel like there's a
No,
certain
it's just me. It's me reiterating on everything I'm talking about it. How people perceive it and whether they want to argue with me, they can argue all they want, except that it's my life. That's why I never quit, and that's why I'm not going to quit. That's why I haven't retired, and I'm not going to. I've done this for a lifetime. Some people have a problem with that because they're fucking jealous. And those are the people that say negative things about me, are people that are jealous. It's not because that I suck. It's because they are jealous that they don't have and haven't had the life that I've had. So what do you do when you feel that way? Knock it down, because it makes me feel better because I'm a loser, right? So
yeah.
that's how I kind of see the way that it all is, and the people that find fault with the Anvil movie or with me are usually jealous. That's how I kind of perceive it, or they're heartless. One of the two.
Yeah, because if you don't watch that movie or talk to you and don't feel like because I could feel like your heart and your passion when I talk to you, and there's some people that just think if you're not like on number one on Billboard, well then what are you even doing? That's
Hey, and if you don't own Home Depot, why do you have a hardware store?
that's a genius comparison, Liz. That
Well, I mean, it's true, right?
yeah.
Like if you don't own, okay, I'm trying to think of another example. If you don't own Wegmans, why do you own a pharmacy?
Yeah, one or okay, I can.
Like a mom and pop shop, or if you don't own Sam Goody's Records or H&M Records, why do you own a record store?
Exactly. Or even like keeping in
You
music,
can go
like
on and on and on and on, man. Okay,
mhm.
you don't have to be. Hey, Motorhead was never as big as Judas Priest or Iron Maiden, ever.
No.
Okay, you're gonna discredit Lemmy for anything? Why? His music was just as significant, just because of numbers. Is that what you're going to judge it by? Well, I'll tell you what. Lemmy influenced me a hell of a lot more than Motley Crue ever did, and Motley Crue sold 10 times the amount of records. So I'll just end it at that.
Mhm. I understand where you're coming from completely.
It's not a fucking horse race. It's art. It's music. It's
Exactly.
not supposed to be competitive. It's not supposed to be this band is better than that band. It's who are you asking?
Yeah, completely. I wanted to ask you, since you brought up Lemmy, what is and his influence on you? Because I know that you guys I don't know if you were very close, but I know there was some history there. What is something that you learned from Lemmy, be it musically or in life, that you carry with you?
Well, it's interesting. He told me, there's 10 years difference between us.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was 25 at the time. And I'm sitting and I'm going, man, you're such a huge influence. You change the way that people perceive metal music, and people are going to be copying what you've done, and they've been influenced by you all over the place. And Like, how does it feel to be like that? And he just looks at me like I'm out of my fucking mind. And he goes, in 10 years, there's going to be some other fucking guy sitting across the table telling you that. He says, that's how it feels. So it's a pretty kind of fascinating outlook. And he was right. You know, and within 10 years, I'm meeting the guys in Metallica, and they're telling me the big influence that I had on them, and I'm going, okay, all right. So now I know how Lemmy felt, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. To be on the other side of that exchange has to be surreal, I imagine.
Yeah, you know, I got along really well with him to the point where he had problems with Fast Eddie Clark. They came here to play in Toronto, and Lemmy had some kind of muscle spasm in his arm, and he had to end the show early. Well, that totally infuriated fucking Eddie Clark. And before they even left Toronto, Eddie had a hissy fit and quit the band. Yeah. The next morning, Doug Smith, who was managing Motorhead at the time, calls me and he goes, can you come out and finish the tour with us? We're playing all over the States, and then we're going to go and record a new album, and maybe we could move on from there, and maybe we could have a future. And I just said, not with me. I can't do it. And the guy goes, well, it's going to be really good for your career. I go, yeah, I appreciate that, but I'm under contract to a record label. I'm all but finished writing all my new material. I'm supposed to go in a week or two. I can't just take off and join another band. Can't do it. I'm going to get sued.
Right. You have obligations.
I'm obligated. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Lemmy was not happy with that answer and gave me shit and was angry at me. But then it turned around where he goes, okay, well, you know, he went and hired Brian Robertson, and they got the album done. And the first thing he did when he got the album done, I met up with him in Belgium somewhere at a festival. And he made me listen to it. And of course, Another Perfect Day, and I thought it was a great album. I let him listen to Forge and Fire, and he thought that was a great album. And he goes, okay, well, I'm going to work it out with my management people, and we're going to do a tour. And we ended up playing all over the UK with Motorhead in '83, and did that tour with them. So, he wanted me to join the band, but it couldn't happen. It just couldn't happen. You know, contractual obligations. And let's face it, I belong in Anvil. I'm the front man of Anvil. Why am I joining Motorhead? You know, there's that question too.
Yeah, because like you are Anvil. So yeah, that makes complete sense to me. You're like the
I can't leave my band and join another band and expect that people are going to go, well, what the fuck is this? It's like sort of like a bastardized Motorhead. It's like, I don't know. It's something not quite right about it. And it didn't go down that way that Lemmy would have wanted it. And I mean, it's not a question of whether I have regrets. It would have been great. I think that it could have been something extremely magical, but we'll never know. It's just something that you got to live with. The whole world's got to live with. You're never going to hear what a combination of Lips and Lemmy might have sounded like. It could have been really interesting. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
We certainly listened to a lot of the same music. We had a lot of the same influences. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but if everything is meant to work out the way it does,
the chips fall and that's where they fell. That's it.
Exactly. I was curious if when the documentary came out, did you hear from people from the back in the day, like bands you toured with, or people like that you hadn't heard from in a while?
Uh, no, but I met people. I met people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and it was good to see them after all that. And I met people that I'd never met, and and some people that I had met, it wasn't even you would never expect them to know what Anvil is or even appreciate it. The unbelievable, like meeting Paul McCartney was fucking mind-boggling. And it's not just a matter of meeting Paul McCartney, but he knew who I was because he'd seen the Anvil movie. So I mean, that's pretty fucking out there, man.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how do you describe what it? To me, that's like, do I give a shit what anybody else thought? if if Paul McCartney is saying you rock my fucking world and I fucking love you, does it matter what anyone else has to say?
Absolutely not. I would have gotten that tattooed right on my forehead to be like Paul McCartney.
I don't know, man. It's just sometimes you got to put things into perspective. You really do.
Uh-huh.
You get a band from whatever Timbuk or whatever, and they're carving on Anvil. Anvil suck. But meanwhile, Paul McCartney is telling you guys kick ass. Do I give a shit what the guy in Timbuk has to say? Not at all.
100%. If one of the greatest living songwriters of our day says you're awesome, then
and shakes your hand and thanks you, you're going, you know what? There's the ultimate payment, isn't it?
uh-huh. That makes it.
And I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, Paul was one of the many. It's not just one guy. It's not. I'm not even. What I actually came to realize, anybody who has made it for real and isn't insecure about their life and about their circumstances and situation, they're going to be very open-hearted and very, very kind and very, very, very congratulative to me. People who are insecure and never been happy or didn't get the fame that they figure they deserve are going to be jealous and vindictive and vengeful towards me. And that's what I've actually come to notice.
Yeah.
Hugely. And it's really fucking bizarre. Really bizarre.
Yeah.
The bands that the bands that have really made it, they want to be my friend. They want to hug me. They want to shake my hand. They want to get their picture taken with me. But then the bands that are kind of my peers and were trying to get someplace and didn't, they only wish me bad.
Yeah, it's pretty transparent projection of their insecurities onto.
Yeah, it is, and I didn't realize that. I was hurt. I've been hurt a lot of times in the sense that, well, I don't know that it's kind of I kind of got wear a bulletproof skin. I become pretty fucking resilient in that regard, and I've really come to realize that the negativity is a projection. It says more about the person saying it than it's saying about me. And I've come to realize that. And once you do realize that, then you're like one of the big famous rock stars. You become impenetrable. You can't be damaged by what somebody says. Your skin's too thick. You become too confident. So it's not going to bother you. And that's kind of what's happened to me over the years. I've come to realize certain things. Like it's really, really fascinating. You watch some people have had some really, really interesting meetings. Of course, I know David Coverdale from Super Rock '84 and even before. Okay,
Mhm.
back in '83 or whatever, I played festivals with them in Belgium. I know Dave. Anyway, I'm playing a festival. Must have been in 2002. David was the headliner that time. And meanwhile, they put all this yellow fucking police tape so he could walk to the stage. He's walking to the stage, and he's got a girl holding on each elbow, on each arm, and he's walking by, and he looks over at Rob and I, and he kind of gives us this nod. Look at me, fuck you. Okay, this is in 2002. It doesn't say a fucking word to me, right? Okay, now we know each other from Super Rock '84. We know each other, okay?
Yeah.
It's just this fucking arrogance and fucking look at me and fuck you, right?
Yeah.
The next time I see Dave, we're at what the hell was it called? It was a classic rock, the Classic Rock Awards. Now, who are they giving awards to? They're giving awards to anybody who fucking deserved it from years ago, including Ozzy for being so fucking influential. Ozzy was there. Fucking Jeff Beck was there. Fucking Brian May was there. Jeff Beck was there. Jimmy Page was there. Just about name it, and they were at this thing. Anyway,
Wow.
David Coverdale's there, and he sees Rob and I, and he comes over. How the fuck are you guys? It's great to see you, right? And I'm going, what the fuck? Meanwhile, he would talk to us. Of course, he'd seen that we were in the fucking London Sun the night before. That
Right.
everybody, that the movie was breaking big all over the UK. We're friends with the fucking Prime Minister and his wife. Like, we're now important people. So, of course, now David is coming up to say hello. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know where that's coming from.
Yep. I've had that.
Before the movie, he couldn't give a shit about you and acted like you're a piece of shit. And you're lucky that I even acknowledged that you were standing there. Never mind. But now he had to go out of his way to come up and say hello. So that there's a marked difference. So even the guys who are really, you won't get their respect until you get respect. You follow what I'm saying? With some of them. And then on the other side of it, you know, I'm sitting having dinner and someone taps me on the back. I turn around and it's Ozzy. He goes, fucking so fucking excited to meet you. You're fucking awesome. You're a fucking legend. So Ozzy telling me that. It's like, hello.
Exactly. To get the thumbs up from.
Up, man. It's fucked up.
I know.
So, and you know, so if some putz from another band wants to say that Anvil sucked, go ahead. I don't give a shit. It doesn't bother me. We know why you're saying it. You only wish you were me.
100%. Well, I hope that this conversation has been on more of the plus side, and I feel like I've learned a lot just from talking to you for the past hour. I wanted to ask you one more thing, and I appreciate you being so generous with your time. Just as a fan of the band and as a fan of you, you said that the next album is written. Is there anything you can tell me about what you when you were writing these songs, like what were you drawing from? Is there anything?
No, actually, the thing is, I don't have any place that I draw. I'm always been creative with playing. I never have there's never ever really a shortage of ideas. You know, it's interesting. We've been in the recent last couple of years, we've become very good friends with the singer guitar player Miles Goodwin from April Wine. Are you know who that is? You know,
I don't think I have. No.
Wow. Okay. Well, April Wine is a Canadian institution. Basically, they're one of the longest running rock bands in Canada. They've got, I would say that they've got about 50 hit singles on the Canadian radio. That all the top 10. They are
Mhm.
one of the biggest, if not the biggest, rock band that Canada's ever known. And I could go as far as saying that they've had more radio play than Rush in this country, because
Oh,
they've had
really?
way more hit singles than Rush ever had. How they do financially, or whether they didn't mean much in America, is it's nor here nor there. But that's not why I'm talking about them. He's somewhat retired now. He's 70, 72, 73 years old. It's not all the original band members that he's got in April Wine, but he's been doing blues as his retirement, because that's what usually rock guitar players do. They end up retired and playing blues.
Yeah.
But as of recently, he's been trying to write for a new April Wine album, which hasn't been one in probably 10 years. And I'm having conversations. I'm going, Miles, you got to be heavy. You got to kick ass. Don't give me, don't write me your pink songs. Write me your deep blood red songs, your black songs, your fucking nasty purple songs. But don't write me pink flowery songs, man. And then the world is going to take notice of what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really, really like, come on, man. Like at that time, when the last time I talked to him, we'd only been back at rehearsal for 3 weeks. So I'd already had 3 songs already together. And he's going, yeah, man, I've already got like 4 songs. And he's like kind of bragging to me and whatnot. And Rob talked to him last week, and it's like we're 10 weeks from there. We've got 8 songs. He's still at number 4. Hasn't written a fucking thing since I last talked to him. And he's saying, I got a writer's block. And I'm going, I don't even know what the fuck that is. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Like, I don't get that. Like that's not part of my fucking, I can't comprehend that way of thinking. It's either you are or you are not. It's not, I am today and I'm not tomorrow and then I am the next day. It's like, no, it's either you are or you're not. And when I talk about things like that, that's why when I go in the studio, I don't write my vocal lines. I don't write my guitar solos, because I'm a writer. When I get there, I will write it and make decisions there. And I'm not going to labor over it for hours and hours. I'm going to fucking make quick decisions and come to the right choices immediately, because that's what I do. I'm a writer, not sometimes, all the time, right? And that's what I think that people have to understand, or other musicians have to understand about what they're doing. You don't just fucking do it one day and you can't the next. It's you can do it or you can't do it, and make the decision and get your shit together. And if you got writer's block, kick your own ass and come up with some ideas. Smoke a fucking joint. Have a beer. I don't give a fuck. But loosen yourself up and fucking get your shit done. Don't be lazy.
That's
how I look at it, man. What's stopping you other than yourself? You can't use that as an excuse. I've got writer's block. What the fuck is that? It's like today I can tie my laces. Tomorrow I can't. Why? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Once you know how to play and how to do that kind of thing, what's your fucking problem? These are the questions that I ask, and it's a little harsh and maybe a little insensitive, but at the same time, it's real, man. It's real. I'm honest. It's either you're a writer or you're not. It's not, do it sometimes when I'm in the mood. What the fuck's that?
Yeah, that's the difference between like uh occasion, like the idea of like inspiration versus the idea of craftsmanship. I hate to have to cut the short, but it just started thunderstorming here, and I'm afraid my lights are about to might go soon.
Yeah, I gotta get going. I gotta get to rehearsal.
Oh well, Steve, I'll tell you now. Thank you for your time today, and thanks for the years of great music, and for that movie. It inspired and it affected me as much as this conversation has. So I really appreciate it, man.
Okay, Will, nice talking to you, man.
When I first saw the Anvil documentary, before I even lived in New York City, I was inspired by it. And talking to Lips now, I'm still inspired by his dedication to his craft, to what he loves to do, and how he sticks up for himself in the place he is at now, even given the uncertain future of the music industry and of live shows. So, Steve, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. I will look up and listen to April Wine, and thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it. And I also want to thank you for taking time to listen to this show. If you've never heard of me before, I really appreciate that. And if you enjoyed this podcast and think you might know someone else who would want to listen to this as well, we are available on all of the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. If you want to get a free month of Stitcher Premium, you can sign up with the promo code AWESOME at stitcher.com/premium. Get a free month off with the promo code AWESOME. Of course, listen to Anvil wherever you get your music. And if you have not seen Anvil, the story of Anvil, check it out. It's even if you are not a heavy metal musician, you will be inspired and affected by that movie. Affected, not infected. Affected by that movie. So definitely check that out as well. I also want to give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much for your support. I sincerely appreciate it. And if you guys are curious, you can go to patreon.com/awesomedisaster and check out some of the stuff that I've got going on there for subscribers. And I also want to say, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, if you could take a second to leave a rating or a review, that would be really helpful as far as getting other people to find the show as well. So if you were able to do that, I would sincerely appreciate it. And I appreciate you being here today. I hope you're staying well. Even in uncertain and scary times, I'm glad that I have this outlet to communicate with people and to communicate with you. So if you want to hear from me, I'm easy to find. I'm on Twitter at ComicWillCarey. I'm on Instagram at Will23, and Between Awesome and Disaster on Instagram as well. So thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you next time between Awesome and Disaster. Stay safe and wear a mask.